Hello and welcome to the Paper Prototypes podcast. I'm Rex and I'm here with my guest today, Brozev, who developed Felvidek. So, Brozev, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and then tell me about your game?
Hello, everyone. I'm Josef Pavelka, also known as Brozev on the internet, and originally I am a illustration student from the. This is a really long name. The Faculty of Design and Art of Ladislav Sutnar of West Bohemian University of Czech Republic in Pilsen, or just we call it Sutnarka because it's much simpler. And that's a art university in, or not art, well, it's a faculty in Czech Republic where we, among other things, study concept art, illustrations, comics, and recently we started dabbling more and more into video games, game engines, video making, all of this stuff.
Okay, and is that where you got your start doing video games?
Well, the very first game I made was in maybe 2016, and it's just a very quick demo for my graduation at grammar school, because I studied IT among a lot of other things there,
Hell
and
yeah,
that was just,
brother.
yeah, a very very simple demo, uh, of like a 3D platformer, but like nothing much to talk about. And the second game I made is actually Felvidek, which started as my bachelor thesis. So that is so I started working on it in 2020, and in the very beginning it was just supposed to be like a semestral project, a not even about game mechanics or a story, just create visuals for one map, one interior, and like one animation of a guy that's running, and that was it, pretty much. And from there, it started snowballing. I chose to do my thesis as a like a. It wasn't even a demo, like a pre-alpha thing. Like visually, it's very similar to Felvidek, but if you actually played it, it's unrecognizable. Sorry. So yeah, that's how Felvidek started, as a like school project or
And
university project.
why did you end up continuing Felvidek instead of moving to a different project?
Pretty much naivety. I'm not even joking, because after, what was it, a half a year of intensive work, I had maybe like 50 characters drawn, a very very simple story, some animations, some maps, and I thought, I have a lot of stuff done, so why not just finish it in next 3 months, make a bunch of money. And like every 3 months I realized that I need at least another 3 months, and here we are 3 years later.
So two things that caught my eye when I first found your Twitter profile is obviously the art about Felvidek and its art style. But the other thing that caught my eye was you made the whole game an RPG maker.
That is true, and that ties into my previous answer, because I had a lot of stuff done already in the RPG Maker. Because remember, it wasn't supposed to be a game; it was supposed to be just a visual for like a concept art project. Like, here is a concept. Look, there is something moving. So there was no need to program anything by myself. So I used RPG Maker, and after like working in it for, I don't know, 1.5 years or something like that, I decided it's, time to move on. So I moved on. And I started working on it. And I think, like, 2 years ago, I decided it's, time to move on. So 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 I decided it's, time to move it would be too much of a hassle to port it to some other engine.
Because
And
usually, oh sorry,
I was just going to ramble about how insane it is to work with RPG Maker, so we don't even have to like touch that subject because it's crazy.
please do. I don't think, because the thing is, every time I see on Steam RPG Maker, it's usually a lot of default sprites. You can kind of tell that it's RPG Maker. While the first time I saw Felvidek, I was like, wow, I wonder what this guy's working with. And then I saw RPG Maker, and I just didn't believe it for a second. I was like, nah, he's fucking with me.
Yeah. I did a lot of black magic to make it look how it looks. And like, to be fair, surprisingly, RPG Maker has some community support, and if you know where to look, you can find some stuff how to make it look different, better. The problem is the amount of work I've put in, for example, the 8 directional movement that is in Felvidek. In any other engine, it would be like something trivial. 10, 30 minutes maybe of like programming in Unity or something, setting up the collisions. In RPG Maker, I had to get a bunch of plugins. The collision wasn't that great anyway. I had to hire some other people that are in the credits of Felvidek, if you want to look them up, to make like changes to the plugins and make additional plugins to fix the plugin. It's just a ton of work that was completely unnecessary. Or my favorite example is that RPG Maker doesn't have a line break at the end of just the end of the screen. So if you type and you don't press enter, the text just leaves the screen, which happened on a bunch of occasions on like day one. I had to quickly patch it, and well, then you want to fix that, right? So you get a plugin. So you have something as stupid as a line break on the end of the screen, but that plugin for translations to work correctly. So you have to work around that, and it's just a lot of unnecessary work if you want to push the engine towards what is not supposed to do. Because to be fair, RPG Maker, if you just want to make, an RPG Maker game, it is an intuitive system. You don't need to know much programming. But if you want to make anything a little more original, you not only have to create the new system, but you have to undo the previous system that's already in place. But enough shitting on RPG Maker. It's not as bad as I'm making it sound. I'm just a little burned out after what, 2 years, 3 years.
So Felvidek is I want to say a historical game set in, is it the Austria-Hungarian Empire or the Czech?
No, it's not Austria-Hungary yet. At the time of Felvidek, it's the Great Hungary, and more specific, Slovakia, which a lot of people will get angry about. That Slovakia didn't exist at the time. Well. But because if you know anything about Europe, we are very nationalistic and just want to fight about everything all the time. But yes, Felvidek is set in 15th century or mid 15th century Slovakia, at the time known as Felvidek, or well, actually, the word Felvidek is a little more modern, from like 19th century. At the time of the 15th century, it was something like Felfield. Doesn't really matter. But I'm getting tied up, so I'll start over to introduce it a little better. So Felvidek, the word itself means upper or like highlands, upper land, which Hungarians today and in 19th century used to describe Slovakia as part of Hungary. Now, this term is little controversial because Slovakia was part of Hungary and then we split, and Hungarians are, of course, not all of them, but there are many nationalistic movements that don't really like that we split. I'll just start over with the whole Felvidek thing. I got tied up anyway.
Sure thing. You wanted to restart about talking about the origin of the word Felvidic, or just the exact setting of the game?
We can like the whole thing, the exact setting with the word Felvidek itself.
Because it's set during the Hussite War, which isn't really widely known by a lot of people, at least where I'm from.
Yeah, I mean not in Europe anyway. But yeah, okay, I'll start over with Felvidek. So yes, Felvidek is placed in 15th century Slovakia. And the word itself, Felvidek, is a Hungarian word that means highlands or upper land, which they use to refer to Slovakia today. And the word itself is a bit more modern. I think it originates, or not the word, but the usage of the word originates in 19th century. And it's a little bit controversial, actually, the word, because uh, Slovakia split from Hungary in 1918, which not all Hungarians like even today. Slovaks don't like the word because it refers to the past when we had to live under Hungarians. And so the question arises, why even use this word if it's controversial? It doesn't sit right with Slovaks nor Hungarians most of the time because it's set in Slovakia. There is no ill will behind usage of this word. I just want to refer to our past, because if you ask Slovaks about our origins, you uh, usually get told that, you know, 1,000 years ago there was Great Moravia, which was a Slavic like state, which then got overrun by Hungarians, and from then on we just suffered for 1,000 years, and everything was bad and wrong. And to be fair, like surely there was strife among the different nationalities that lived here, whether it was Slovakians, Hungarians, the Jews, Poles, Germans. But you know, they lived together, and it wasn't as terrible as it is today presented. And it is important to note that a lot of history that is Hungarian took place in Slovakia, because in the 16th century, for example, the Ottomans uh, occupied Budapest and a lot of Hungary. So most of most of the nobility moved elsewhere. A lot of them to Slovakia, then known as Felvidek or Felfil. There was some different word in that time. And I just want to point to this part of history that is shunned away, and I want people to cherish this history, even though it's not very heroic most of the time. Uh, it's not a happy history, but it's ours, and I think that's a reason enough to like it, to cherish it, to tell it to
With
next generations.
that greater theme you're reaching about it's not the perfect or heroic history, but it's our history. Do you feel that influenced you in writing the characters, especially Pavel being an alcoholic knight who's kind of cynical, and Mitaj who definitely is a flawed priest, especially in that scene where he pretends to be Pavel in the bar?
Well, before I start talking about the story, uh, I have to mention Vlado Ganai, who is the main writer for Felvidek. Uh, I Even though I made most of the game myself, when it comes to the story, the majority of uh, the credit should go to him, because and actually this is the problem with credits, because I had a lot of input into the story. I was kind of an art director, so I never know like how much percent should I give to him, to myself, when it comes to the story. But yeah, the majority of the story and the dialogues is his doing. And
Okay.
with that said, uh, yeah, that's just. And I don't think uh, like making the characters flawed was influenced by this overall uh, vision of our flawed history. Is just uh, a very Slovak, and I think also just Slavic in general type of humor, where we just love losers. And like not just losers that cannot do anything, but like losers who still try their hardest to get on with life. There is something very endearing about it. And yeah, when I think about like Slovak movies and just culture and media in general, the heroes are usually losers in the end. Like we really like highwaymen that get hanged in the ending, and they just try really hard to do something with their life and fail all the time. And it's just hilarious to see like these two guys, this this PTSD alcoholic knight, and his devout priest or monk friend, just thrown into borderline insane situations and see them deal with it.
There's also the main, I guess, villain is I tried looking it up and I kind of got just kind of confused in Wikipedia. A offshoot sect of Zoroastrianism.
Yeah, it's pretty much Satanist, just in a different cloaks. And yeah, let's talk spoilers. Yeah, listen, if you haven't played the game, go play it now, dear viewer or listener, and come back later, because from now on we are just gonna talk spoilers all the time. So yeah, the villains, the Zervanist. It's a offshoot Zoroastrian. Like the Zoroastrian is a religion not as widely popular today as a few millennia ago, but in the context of Felvidek, it's not even Zoroastrianism that's in there. it's not even Zurvanism, it's a sect of a sect, because if you know the actual villain Marek, he goes to Armenia, where he finds these Zurvanists that are already a sect of Zoroastrianism, and he bastardizes it even more, then brings it home and just creates this mishmash of Satanism with Zurvanism. Yeah, it's a mess. That's kind of point of it.
So the two things, does that mean Araman, the I guess the demon that gets bound, is that actually a part of Zervanism, or is that just a demon that's been masquerading as an aspect of Zervanism? And also, he wants to bring about the Austro-Hungarian Empire?
Yeah, you have to ask Vlado about this line. I don't know if he just found it funny or if he had something deeper in mind.
I mean, I thought it was pretty badass the way this demon just says, like, oh, there needs to be change. In the changes, I'm going to decimate
It's
and genocide this whole culture to bring about this revolution that's not going to happen for
yeah,
another
it's savage. It's
200 years.
brutal. Yeah, it is brutal. Yeah, but Ahriman or Angra Manu in the Zoroastrianism is yeah, the best way for us to understand it is just Satan. You know, demons. And actually, this is the problem with Marek and his bastardization of the sect. Ahriman and Angra Manu is the same pretty much in Zoroastrianism, but in Felvidek, Angra Manu is like the major demon, like Satan himself, and Ahriman is just like his offshoot, or like no one even really knows because it's this bastardized version.
So we've got Hussite's bastardization of Zoroastrianism, and something else I wanted to touch on was the portrayal of certain minority groups in the game. Particularly, there's like a monster that's revealed as just a child that's been a conjoined twin, as well as that there's a character known as just the Jew that lives in the woods, and both of those are it kind of reminds me of when I read With Fire and Sword, being in that that's how those certain groups were depicted as just their ethnic group versus as who they are as a people. So it's historically accurate in that way. But the game also goes out to portray them in like a really important light, where the Jew character is both comical but also really intelligent and sympathetic, and the townspeople do seem to like him, or how the town fool is just someone that's just trying to get by like all the other townspeople, but is seen as an outcast. How did you go about writing those characters, or I guess how did you think about incorporating those characters with your co-writer?
Yeah, there never was much concern about things like political correctness, but we also didn't want to make like caricatures of people, and it is important to note that there is there is no character that isn't made fun of in the game. So it would, if we are making fun of everything we encounter, because the story is pretty much told through Pavel's eyes and like how he sees the things around him. For example, you know, one of the spells when the enemies are casting is just called Hocus Bogus, because
Yes.
that's how Pavel interprets it. It's just like some choromoro. He has no idea what's going on, so it's just Hocus Bogus. And you know, and that's how he sees everyone else, like just their ethnicities or ethnicities. Forget it. Too hard of a word. Yeah, and there is also like the Czechs, the Gypsy. I think there is one German family. The landlord is partially Hungarian, and we just make fun of everything. But yes, as I said, we didn't want to make caricatures. We wanted to, even though we are making fun of everything, we want to pay respect by making fun of it to the cultures and the things like this. Yeah, that's why the Jew is not just like some dumbass who is made fun of, and yeah, he pretty much invents the balloon like 300 years before it's actually invented in real life.
So you mentioned some characters that I never got to see, and that was something else I wanted to touch on. Is that there's surprisingly a lot to miss in the game. I remember encountering a forest demon, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I'll answer that later on." I just never did. I've seen people talk about characters I've never met, and I'm like, "Okay, so I sped through this accidentally." Um, so I wanted to ask, was that something that you intentionally designed that people could miss if they sped through? Or
Yes,
was that a
yes,
way to increase like replayability?
uh, the replayability is a secondary effect, but yes, the intent is to have content that can be missed, because I believe that makes the world much more alive. You know, feeling that things are happening with or without you. You know, Pavel dies, doesn't matter. He's one in 1,000 other nights. The world continues. And yes, there are quests that are locked by time or region, and just a lot of content to miss, because I thought that's what creates the illusion of a live world.
I think that's just a really interesting approach, especially because you don't have any type of journal or quest system. It's just kind of like
Yes.
that guy says to go in the woods. You find him or fuck off.
Yeah. And I did consider having a journal, but in the end, such a short game. It's like the game time is what, 4 days? Yeah, 4 days. You can play it in like 4 hours or even 3 if you are very fast. So like I ditched. Actually, not just the journal. There is a lot of cut content that I didn't deem was necessary to enrich the atmosphere and the story or the visuals, or I had to just be aware of the scope of the game, because I painted everything alone, I animated everything alone, so I just had to be very wary about this, to not spend 3 more years on
Well,
on an RPG Maker game of all things. Like I wanted to move on in the end.
one thing I noticed is that there's only like 4 locations, and they open up, but there's really only 4 places on the map, which I didn't realize until like halfway through the game. Which I kind of like, because even though this Zervanism feels like this world-ending thing, and Aramon certainly is talking as if it is, at the end it kind of just gets forgotten as a historical fact, and everyone's like, well, it's just like a rumor, I guess. Um,
Yeah, and
so
I don't think it's a I don't think even I portrayed it as a world-ending event. It's a problem of this small village and an obscure lord that live somewhere in the hills. Like no one really cares what happens there. Today there are Hussites, tomorrow there will be Zurvanists. No one cares. It's the nature of this region. And yeah, if you look into the history of region where, or I am originally from, which is Prešov in Slovakia, there is like for like 1,000 years there is continual murder and changing of ethnicities and just different people being there all the time, different invaders. One day you have Avars, then Tatars, Mongolians. Everyone is dead, so the king brings some Germans, just to repopulate the to the place. Oh, some Germans come in, then the Hungarians come in. It's just this mishmash of murder and replacement. And yeah, before even before that, there were what Celts. Those get murdered by Slavs, so we can be here today, And that's the nature of Felvidek too. Like today we are here, tomorrow this whole region can be forgotten. Maybe it will not.
So Felvidek, being this historical story, also has a lot of. I really like medieval history, so I really enjoy seeing the Occupus and the. I remember watching a video on the Hussites once. I forgot everything about them, but I like seeing in the castle. There's a little ice box where everyone keeps their ice, so everyone can stay cool. The castle is somewhat realistic, as in it's not just like some 19th century fan project made by like a billionaire. Um, actually has defensible structures, and then there's also the term like the burgomaster, which I don't even remember how that ties into feudalism at this point. So, was that just? Are you also a fan of history, and is that stuff you had to research, or is
Oh
that kind
yes,
of stuff you already
very
were
much.
aware of?
Yes, very much so. And I don't have a formal education in history like Josh Sawyer, but I do enjoy history a lot, and just from very young age I always liked knights. I started doing some historical fencing some years ago. I switched to HEMA, or for those who don't know, historical European martial arts, a few years ago. And yeah, that's a comfort zone for me. So when I started making a game, I decided to put it in that timescape because uh, I didn't have to think about the material structure to depict, and I could focus more on just the art itself, the story, the mechanics, all this stuff. But I like history in general. Even like I dabble in sci-fi, doesn't matter. But yeah, history or medieval history is my comfort zone, especially the mid 15th century.
So, another thing I wanted to talk about was sort of like one thing that really captured my attention about Felvidek when I played it was sort of the very clashing of aesthetics and atmospheres. So it's very goofy, but also Zervanism kind of has like this horror aspect to it when it starts to really take a hold of the town, especially when you go to fight the big bad Malik in the Flesh Cavern. I don't even know how I would describe that. But then everyone has the goofiest scream when they die. Everyone has really goofy faces, especially the very first Zervan cultist who's got like a thick mustache and he's got the stupidest
Yeah,
face. But then the
that's my
game.
friend actually.
See, I was wondering. I was like, these have got to be real people here.
Like, funnily enough, some of them are, some of them are not. A lot of the characters have some photo bash in them. A lot of them don't have any. Some are more photo bash, some are not. It was like that. That's the nature of working on something for that long. Because I was in the beginning, I was just experimenting with like new visual styles, how to take advantage of working with computer, how can I make some fast adjustments to make pixel art from just regular digital painting. and so it morphs and morphs. But yeah, thankfully enough, the visual style is so strong that it holds everything together, even if those things are made years apart. And yeah, back to the first Zurbanist cultist. That's the face of my friend just put in there.
How did you come across deciding the art style for Felvidek? Because I saw you made a post on Twitter detailing it was like a digital painting, and then it's just layers of filters to bit crunch it, and basically decide like the color palette. How and also how did you decide what scenes were gonna have which colors?
Uh, I pretty much eyeballed the second part of your questions. How I chose the colors, I just eyeballed them. Like yellow and gold feels royal, so the monks and like the good guys in general have that color. Red is somewhat uh, somewhat brutal, somewhat rugged, so that's used for Pavel and the villagers. Uh, just yeah, just eyeballing everything. And yes, the technique itself, uh, I got very inspired some years ago with combining digital and traditional techniques. I'm talking etching, lino cuts, wood cuts, all this stuff, and then bringing it into the computer, into the digital, or vice versa, creating something digitally and then transferring it to a plate matrix and just creating traditional prints. It's really fascinating, and that's what drove the visuals of Felvidek because and I also have a post about this on Twitter. I'm very inspired by some by people like Albin Brunovsky or Theodor Schnitzer, who are graphical or graphic artists from the 20th century from Slovakia, and I just wanted to build upon their legacy. Even though they work traditionally and I work digitally, I wanted to like give some homage to them, even though they are much much better than probably I will ever be. I will ever be.
So there's that, but then also all the cutscenes are PS1.
Uh, yeah, you could say it's PS1, but to be honest, I wasn't really inspired by other games when creating Felvidek. Like I always get asked, like, "Oh, what game was your inspiration for Felvidek?" And there isn't much to tell because I don't play that many games anymore. So I always have to say Gothic, the German RPG from 2001, I believe, because that just made a very huge impact on me when I was a kid. And also, yes, some adventure games or uh, RPGs like Fallout and stuff.
And then what? So
Oh yeah, sorry, you were asking about the cutscenes. Yeah,
yes.
so the reason they are PS1 and low poly is because it's a very fast way of working, and it was the easiest way for me to incorporate a 3D cutscene and make it fit into the rest of the game because we have all these like low resolution bit crushed pixelated characters, and it would be very jarring to have super realistic models with some filters on them. Like I don't think it could work that well. And yes, I feel the PS1 or PS1, PS2. I never owned any kind of PS station, so I wasn't inspired in this way. But yes, this approach allowed me to focus on the animation and make it somewhat alive. Even though I'm not professionally an animator, I think I did sort of a good job to make it expressive and just fit into the rest of the game.
I particularly did like the PS1 graphics because, man, some of that shit was horrible. Like the bit where there's a demon taunting Pavel, I was like, what is happening right now? I think the fact that I couldn't make out what it was only added to the eeriness of it. And the fact that a lot of the cutscenes, there's no music, there's no sounds except for the clanking of armor, which I don't know. I've always enjoyed watching medieval duels, and that's all you hear is the clash of swords and the clanking of the armor. It really adds to, like, the heaviness of it, as well as just the eeriness of it. Particularly when Aramon's defeated and he just gets stabbed through the chest and the flame goes out, and all you hear is, like, just the metal of his body clank down the stairs. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you.
And the final bit of just oddness, which I think is definitely a theme going on with Felvidek's story, is the fact that the music is prog rock, which feels like it's getting inspiration from, like, so we got old style synths coming from like the 1980s and 90s. There's some of it reminds me of Midwestern emo, which I don't know if that's what they were inspired by, but that's what it reminded me of. Some of the soundtrack's kind of lo-fi, and there's also, I feel like, an inspiration of jazz.
Oh yeah, definitely. The jazz thing. But for that I would have to ask the band. Uh, I think they already told me their inspirations. I forgot. But yeah, the story behind the soundtrack is when I was still working on Felvidek as a school project, I had to get some music in it. So I was looking for some uh, how is it called? Not content free, copyright free. Some copyright free music. I got some, and then I think a year later I found out it wasn't actually
Oh god.
copyright free. So I had to get something new and better. And the band, I know them through my wife. They actually played at our wedding,
Oh, that's so cool.
and yeah, she not told me. Sorry, I'm forgetting some English words. She, what is the word? Not coerced. That's not the right word.
Convinced?
Yeah. She convinced me to approach them, to just see if they would like to do it, and they were really into it. Like they were so just fascinated and motivated to create it, that I'm so glad I approached them, because they just did a very good job. Nothing else to say about them. Marcel Guidot's Holy Crap is the name of the band. Look them up on YouTube, and I think they created the soundtrack in about maybe 2 weeks. Like they just jammed and created this amazing soundtrack. Now, of course, there was a lot of post processing, but the bulk of the work was done in about 2 weeks, I think.
I mean, I could go on a whole rant about how much I adored this soundtrack. I booted up the
Oh,
game and
please do.
immediately went to Spotify to find it. And
Yes,
I mean, there's one
please do.
song that's like this lo-fi Midwestern, at least when I think of it, reminds me of like Midwestern emo. And so it's like almost peaceful, relaxing because you're like by the village. But then there's like this eerie synth in the background that's kind of showing that like, hey, there's something like really uncomfortable that's brewing, but the sound is also like kind of sad because like there's a Hussite invasion. So while it's a really peaceful day, there's like still a lot of the ambiance of something else that's going on. So it's incredible how such like a simple song is able to convey so much about the world, about what's going on. And I fucking love it. I just can't remember any of the names because they're all in like what, Hungarian or Czech.
Yeah, Czech and Slovak.
I can't, so you'll have to take my word for it. Half the soundtrack is great, the other half
but
is horrible because it's deliberately meant to be a horror theme. But
yeah, but the names are actually just the locations most of the time.
see,
So
I figured because let me go to my Spotify super quickly.
Yeah, I think you are talking about Dedina, which just translates to village.
Yes, that's I think what I'm looking for. I have the soundtrack. I literally it's what I listened to last night.
I'm so glad you like it.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
and
it's straight up my favorite
uh,
OST right now.
yeah, I have to say, all I gave them was just pictures of the game and just short descriptions of what I think the music should be. Like, oh, this is the fighting music, so it should be something a little more upbeat. This is horror fighting music, so the same thing, but just horror. And they were given very little because I wanted them to have as much fun and just put something, like put their heart into it, and that they just did amazing. I'm so glad.
Yeah, one of the songs is Ruiny, which just I assumed was ruins. There's
Yes,
Catacomby, which I assumed was catacomb.
yes,
And there's Araman's main theme, which I also fucking loved. I thought that was such a badass theme for a villain, even though you just kind of meet him and kill him right off the bat.
yeah.
But I don't know. The thing I've really enjoyed about Felvidek the most is just the whole story and the way it's like, yeah, being portrayed by a loser, and it's just this really odd adventure he kind of gets suckered into. A big part of the plot is fucking coffee beans, which I
Yeah,
thought was funny because I imagine that's kind of how, without, how would I explain this? Without social media, I imagine there were fads that kind of took off, like the fact that the Netherlands had a fucking market collapse because of tulips. You know, I could totally see why
yeah,
Europe would panic over goddamn coffee beans. So you got that, the jazz soundtrack with
yeah.
prog rock and psychedelic rock, the
Yeah,
PS1
we took a
graphics.
lot of, yeah, sorry, I jumped in. We took a lot of liberties uh in historical correctness because if something was too much fun to cut it because of historical correctness, we just let it slide because like the first written mention of coffee is I don't believe right or believe I don't remember right now, but
I
I
think it was
believe
a
it.
priest who was like, "Oh, this is demonic because it makes me feel weird," but I don't know if that was ever corroborated as true.
Yeah, but it's at least 100 years after Felvidek takes place. So, like coffee, if it even existed as a drink in the time of Felvidek, it was somewhere like very obscure in the distance. But we just, or not just me, but mostly the main writer really liked the idea of coffee, so we just let it in because it's too much fun to cut it out.
So, what is your take on historical accuracy in media? Because when I think of historical accuracy, you could have stuff like, I don't know, Braveheart, which is not even fucking trying. You could have like the
Mm.
movie The Patriot, also a Mel Gibson film, also kind of offensive in how ironically over patriotic it is. But then you'll have other historical media that's so accurate it's just kind of boring and it's all over the place. So what's your
Yeah,
interpretation?
my interpretation is that the most important thing, and that's not just mm, my view towards historical correctness or historical accuracy, but just design in general, and that is that the most important thing is or not the most important, but very important thing is the intention to actually have it that way. So if you want something uh, historical, but you don't care about historical accuracy, I think that's fine. But you have to not try to portray it as historically accurate. And my approach to historical accuracy in Felvidek was that I wanted to make it believable enough so you think that, oh, this could be real. You know, the armors are like just correct. The buildings look believable. There is some logic to them. There isn't, some just crazy spires or whatever. But I, because also because I'm not formally educated, I didn't want to portray it as historically and I just wanted to have the historical elements or I wanted the historical elements for the fantastical elements to shine much more. Like if you have a believable world where you can say, oh, I think this could be real because this person has attire that is somewhat plausible for this timeline. When actually something crazy happens, like you have Yanchi turn into monster, it has much more impact, in my opinion.
I did also enjoy. It seems like no one particularly enjoys death in the game. I particularly like the description of Yancy where he's in the ice tray where it's described this slab of meat once belonged to our poor Yancy, as if like everyone's collectively sad. Um, all of the cultists are described as like young lads, and it's almost like a tragedy when someone dies. Even the Hussites, it's not. I mean, everyone's like fuck
Yeah,
off, but like people are like, well, it's just a corpse now. Like it's almost like a tragedy.
it is a tragedy. Like that's the point that I think I didn't uh, like push enough for it to be completely visible for everyone. But it is the main aspect of the story that like it is tragic. Like, by the end of the story, half of the village is dead. Most of them are cultists who are actually just local children and teens who joined the cult because they were promised they will drive out the Hussites, which doesn't work out at all in the end. It is a tragedy, and yeah, if I had more time and more budget to work on Felvidek, I would definitely create a pacifist route for dealing with all the cultists and Hussites.
Except Adam, he did not give a shit.
Yeah,
he, I remember the hostage negotiation. They were like, "What are your terms?" And he went, "There are none," and just shot a guy, and the combat started.
Oh.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it, Adam.
yeah, I know the jokes are funny when I'm still laughing at them, even though I know them by heart by now.
There are some
And
small moments that, like, don't explicitly say something's bad, but like one detail I caught was in the final fight with Malik, he starts with two cultists. The fight starts, not only does he kill someone just to make his point in your party, but the two cultists with him just immediately mutate into monsters. There's no fanfare. He's just kind of like, fuck it. And he's like, I'm a god now. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to mutate these fuckers, which is really solidified who Malik was.
yeah, he was a power hungry jerk ass, you know. And yeah, he's not portrayed as like extremely uh not intelligent. That's not the right word, or just sly. Uh, he's just the puppet of the Sultan in the story. In this story.
Even though he gets, I think, one of the most pathetic deaths I've ever seen a villain get. He doesn't even die from getting stabbed. They just let the villagers stone him to death.
Yeah, he just burns forever because he's immortal. So he has this burning sword stuck in him forever.
I did have a
To this,
couple questions on the story for anyone to clear up potentially.
yes, go ahead.
What the fuck was the angel doing? Like when he gave Pavel the sword, like what happened? I feel like I just missed something there.
That's just a surreal element of the story. Like and it's not just this moment, but a lot of story beats are driven by sometimes luck, sometimes just coincidence, sometimes just some like random events taking place and cascading into something else. And the angel is just Deus ex machina. God sent his angel to save Pali because God doesn't really like demons, wants to get rid of them. So when he sees our poor guy Pavel getting stabbed, he just saves him and gives him a second chance at life.
And then the thing that, oh my god, I was so I don't want to say upset, but when Pavel leaves with his wife, not only is it the first time I've seen him not smile, when his wife finally is like, "Yeah, I just don't love you,"
Yes.
that broke my heart. But then it's like, well, we don't really know what happens. I was like, is there a different ending, or did they always leave where you just don't know what happened between the two?
Yeah, we don't actually. Me and the writer don't know either. Like the end slides that are there. Those can be different, but for the main ending, which is Polly lives with his wife, and we don't know if he kills her or if they set off in the balloon together or if he just sends her in the balloon away. We don't know that because in the final act, when Pavel is talking to the villagers, he says in the English version, it's foul-mouthed wretches, you know nothing, you know not of my heart's desire. Something like this, right? He's not talking just to the villagers, but to us, to the viewers, to the two writers, which is me and Vlado. We don't know what happened between him and Paula. We saw 4 days of Pavel's life, and we have no idea how he feels about Paula, what they went through together. We know nothing about this. We just saw these 4 days, and he basically tells us to fuck off and give him some peace, and just runs off.
I just think it's interesting how the one of the most striking character traits of Pavel is just he's always smiling except for that final scene, and that lets you know that something in Pavel did change and you don't really know what it was.
Yeah. Strong moment, right?
For sure. I also wanted to know who's the guy that always wants to play fucking card games? What's his name?
Joseph?
Yes, can he be assassinated?
Yes.
Because I remember when I did a quest and she's like, "Oh, by the way, he's about to get assassinated." I was like, "Wait a minute, could I have missed this? Could I have just done the main quest? Could I have just ignored some random NPC and got that guy killed?"
He can die, yes.
Oh, that's horrible. I think he was. I don't know. He was one of my favorites. Just the way he always wanted to play a new fucking board game and was bad at all of them.
Yeah.
But it also killed me that drunk downstairs in the basement, he's like, "I finally get the card game. You have to match 2 cards." And I think that got the hardest laugh out of anything from me.
Fucking Fishtig, what a dumbass. Oh my god, I love that character so much. Like, nothing, just pure dumbass. We even considered making him the traitor who lets the assassins in, but in the end, we like that would give too much credit to him because he's, he's such an idiotic character that it would spoil uh, his his just dumbness.
So I knew I missed some companions. So I did a new playthrough, and I thought the companion I missed was downstairs, where there's a guy who's like, "Let's go on an adventure," and I was like, "I don't know who you are. I'm busy with the main story. I'll come back for you later." So I did. I finally went like, "Yeah, let's do it," and I just got fucking murdered. What was the decision to just let the player get murked within the first half, or never see that character again?
I think I listen. I think it's a great set piece. Like you, if you die this way, and there is no other option in the game to just die outright. It's just right here in the beginning. So even if you don't save, you can replay it really fast. But this sets the expectations of the players, uh, or not the expectations. It just sets the world and how it works. Like it tells you that you can die easily, that you actually don't matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
Because if you go back to the barn, there's just a corpse as if someone else fell for the trap.
Yes, that's just a villager who didn't want to cohort with cultists and paid for it with his life.
Almost as if like Pavel just got lucky, like he just happened to not be the knight that got jumped that day.
Yes, that's exactly the point. Like that could have been you, and in some other playthrough, it was you. you know?
Oh man. And then the other thing that contributes to the fact that like it's almost like Zervanism is like this thing that just sprung up, happened, and then everyone kind of forgot about it in the grand scheme of things is that unlike a lot of other RPGs, there is no leveling up in the way that like you just get new skills by just buying new equipment, and the skills aren't. I don't know. How would I explain this? Some RPGs will be like, here's a skill that double your damage, but only if you've established a quick crit hit a first hand. And this game's like, have a gun. Your special ability is to use the gun.
Yeah, that ties into the atmosphere of the game, and on the other hand, mechanically, it's easy to implement. So that's also a reason to have it this way. But I actually like it. You know, the system. I of course don't claim that the combat system is perfect, but it gets the job done. There is no grinding in the game, which was very much intentional. I wanted I wanted every battle to feel important, whether it be uh, like you feel threatened, or it somehow progresses the story itself. And some battles are just like fun bits that don't really like you fight with one cultist that immediately gives up at one point, which I find hilarious.
Well, there's also just petards scattered randomly, so I'll get in a fight and be like, fuck it, I'm not dealing with this right now. And I'll just throw a stick of dynamite.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
a big. Hmm?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, a big point of this interview so far I've been harping up on a lot about is kind of just like atmosphere. You know, a lot of RPGs will have, a quest system to reduce friction, which this game doesn't have. A lot of games won't have, like, if it says, oh, we're going to do historical accuracy, they'll kind of embrace doing just loots and trying to do something like Kingdom Come Deliverance. But this game shirks a lot of that by having bit crushed graphics. It has prog rock. It has crazy characters that surprise you. What was your intention when you were crafting the story and its greater themes, especially when one of your themes that you wanted to capture was just an odd slice of Slovak history?
I just wanted to make something that's close to my heart, and I think that also is something that Vlado, the main writer, could say. We just wanted to present Slovak humor and culture to the rest of the world in its rawness and its brutality, tragedy, and comedy at the same time.
Well, I think you fucking nailed it.
Thank you.
So with that, I think that might be it for the podcast. Is there anything you want to shout out? Any social media links? Any other projects? I had one gentleman shout out a local pizza place.
Well, we are creating a DLC for Felvidek. That's it. Thank you.
Is there any secrets you want to leak on this podcast? Anything like sneak previews?
Well, what could I tell you?
I gotta get something juicy for the soundbite to get more viewers.
Yeah. You should have told me beforehand. I would come up with something. But yeah, so the DLC is going to take place not after, but during the story of Felvidek, and it's not going to come as a paid DLC, but just a free update that one day you will just appear in your Steam library.
Well, there you go. Free DLCs coming your way. That's the sneak preview. That have you told anyone that before?
I think I did. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I cannot come up with anything exciting right now.
Reminder: free DLCs coming for Felvidek.
Yeah, buy the game now if you haven't already.
Yes, it's great. So
I had some guy contact me on Twitter saying, "I'm really sorry I pirated your game. I will buy it when I have money. I'm just really poor." So I sent him a Steam code telling him to at least give me a good review on Steam.
I did. I liked that you posted your metrics and you're like, "There's one Mongolian." And Steam he commented, so "I am him."
I actually don't know if it really is him, but I choose to believe so because it's too much fun to not.
Just part of the craziness of Felvidek. But yeah, thanks for everyone for watching. I'll make sure to put the Steam page for Felvidek as well as Brosiv's Twitter page so you can see the development of the game and how it came along. It's definitely pretty crazy to watch, especially again from an RPG Maker game of all things. Also, I'm on Spotify and Podbean and a bunch of other platforms. I have a link tree that I'll be posting. I'm on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Threads, Blue Sky. I made a Casa to contact someone, so I guess I'm there now too, possibly. And then I do have a Ko-Fi. It does help the podcast go, so if you want to donate, feel free to. And I think that's everything, so I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye!
See ya. Thanks a lot for having me.